Welcome, everyone, to the Stockbridge Library, Museum, and Archives online poetry series. We are now in season 3 with a theme of Sparks in the Dark. And we have with us today poet James Davis, who has read with us before, which is always quite a treat. His poetry is very powerful. James is the author of Club Q, which Edward Hirsch selected for the Anthony Hecht Poetry Prize. Side note, Edward Hirsch joined us for a Zoom session during the pandemic, which was also a great treat. So James's book was published in 2020. His work has been featured on NBC News, CBS Radio, and anthologized in 2 installments of Best New Poets. His recent poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Pleiades, the Hopkins Review, the Gettysburg Review, Gulf Coast Online, and the Sewanee Review. He is currently a PhD candidate in creative writing at the University of North Texas and is simultaneously the editor-in-chief of the American Literary Review. James, thank you for joining us today. James will be in conversation with John Gillespie. John, in 2020, at the dawn of the pandemic, was the president of the Board of Trustees at the Stockbridge Library and had this fantastic idea to bring the light of poetry into the challenging times we're having. And onward we go with the program several years later. So, John, thank you to you. And again, James, thank you to you. I'll turn the program over to the 2 of you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Wendy, and thanks for the Stockbridge Library host. So, James, maybe if I stopped the program, there wouldn't be so many traumatic things going on in the world. I could be generating this whole level of activity.
I wouldn't.
Kathy, there's a poem.
I wouldn't give
somewhere.
Yourself that much credit.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got to work harder. Yeah, I can only create a little chaos in Topsom, Maine. I'm trying to spread it out, but it's yeah. There are other characters who have a bigger portfolio than I do. That's definitely for sure.
Yeah.
So, this theme this year, igniting sparks in the dark, really the part that the poetry plays to inspire us to take action. So I'm just wondering what you thought about as you worked with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting theme. Like, I'll admit that I didn't sort of connect to it as immediately as I have connected to previous seasons' themes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just a personal thing. Like, darkness for me is like not a generative space at all. And like, I can often feel very overwhelmed by it. So like, I don't know how much like good work I get done in places of darkness. But reflecting on it more, like, you have to do something. You have to take some sort of initial steps to be able to exit that space and get back to a place where you are functional and are able to like celebrate the light in your life. So yeah, I just sort of reflected on what I do actually do in my practice when I'm feeling like so low that I don't have any ideas. Like, what are the elements? What are the themes or sort of formal techniques that I return to sort of like rub the flint together? I wasn't in the Boy Scouts or anything. But I just picture someone like in a cave rubbing rocks together and sort of doing whatever they can with limited resources to try and catch fire and find their way out of something. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I can see a New Yorker cartoon, two people in a cave. One's trying to strike the thing to make it light. The other one's got a little chisel and he's on the wall going, get this thing going, will you? I'm on the second line I got to write.
Yeah, and I'm both of those people.
You're one of those
So
people. Yeah.
it's especially challenging.
So, I don't want to make you share stuff you don't want to. Is there one thing in this kind of dark to light that involves your writing that you would go to or use as, I mean, for me, I just need to read The Journey by Mary Oliver
Hmm.
or a few
Yeah.
other things, and I'm just ready to jump out of my chair and run down the street. Doesn't take much for me to launch. I'm just wondering if there's something in your work or other poets you read or things you read that kind of, you know, parachute you out or up or
Yeah, I think it's a pretty gradual process. Like it's never that I can like rocket up out of that space. It takes, yeah, a pretty slow, sometimes labored creation of like bad, flat, depressed poems. Um, and yeah, it's just you got to work, I think. Like um darkness can really lay me flat and atrophy my brain muscles.
Hmm.
And I work with language at a really sort of molecular teensy weensy little elemental level. I'm writing those Scrabble poems that they're based on
Oh, that's
every
right. You're the Scrabble man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So working with all of those two-letter words is a way of sort of taking some of the pressure of meaning making off of language and just kind of interacting with each of those two-letter words and trying to create a space for that in my brain that is a way of just like shaping my consciousness or reminding
Yeah.
myself that like I have a consciousness and that I have all of these parts of my brain that help me get through life, that I'm more than the sort of limited routine I feel kind of sunk into when I'm in a really dark space.
Hmm.
So that series is
Yeah.
playful and like silly as it seems, is really like a reassuring thing to fall back on.
That's great. So is there a poem to start with you want to share with us?
Yeah, can I start with a long one?
Absolutely. We got the clock's running. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I thought this was a good one for the theme because it's in that two-letter word series, and it's a long poem of gratitude. Um and I think gratitude is actually a pretty good way of igniting sparks in the
Yep.
dark, like expressing your thanks for even things that have been difficult in your life um, is a way of, yeah, I mean, it creates a little bit of friction, right? It's counterintuitive, and it's uh, rubbing something soft against something hard. And I think there's something about uh, that process that creates, yeah, sparks.
Yeah. Great.
So the poem I'm going to read is called Ta, T-A. And that is an expression of gratitude. And you're going to hear that word a lot in this poem. So, ta. Ta, mom, for the word ducky, for the Nintendo, for the criminality of insulting Mickey Mouse in the state of Florida, for McDonald's failed $20 burger, the Ron Supreme, for the Super Nintendo, for bailing Mike and me out of the Royal Rangers, for bailing Max and Jack out of the pound 2 times each, for paying me $5 to watch The Wizard of Oz, which of course I loved, for the Nintendo 64, for leaving spaghetti and sauce on the stove after dress rehearsals, for the $200 in credit card charges I made at Diesel, which you thought was an auto shop, for letting me come out when I was ready, for the Saturn, which still runs, for taking the call, for the pills, for the we, for us. Ta, Mike, for making amends, for not protecting me, for calling me your little sister, for squirting Fruitopia in my face at the bus stop, for mocking me when I was too resigned to wipe the syrup off my glasses, for tilting my just finished 1,000-piece US president's jigsaw puzzle off the card table and laughing when I cried, for your cruel, sexy jock friends who played skins and skins 2-on-2 on our driveway and bullied me mercilessly and confused the fuck out of my pubescent brain, driving me to punch through my bedroom window screen among other fits of homoerotic pique, for pushing me down the stairs, for protecting me. Ta, Scott Major, for being my only friend for a solid 3 years and auditioning with me for the spring play Occupation Murder with an actual monologue about the word ta, the details of which I've otherwise forgotten. Ta, Mrs. Boss and Mrs. Cop, for living up to your names. Ta, Mr. Cool, for not living up to yours. Ta, Mrs. Loomis, for telling me, a high school sophomore, I was definitely smarter than you. For writing beautiful on my terrible poem about the good earth, which I still have not read. For giving me 110% on our African diaspora oral examination, a format I proposed. For indulging my voracious Leo appetite for praise, for liking my humble brag Facebook posts, for the gift of favoritism, damn the expense. Ta, James, for Italo Disco and the best of Bollywood Volume 1, Pet Shop Boys and Menergy, Crime Jazz and Car Rock, Charlotte Gainsbourg, Beirut, Stephen Merritt, Peter, Bjorn, and John. For Micro Cinema, Jan Terry, Ryan Treecarton, the Aurora Picture Show, Wes Anderson, and Preston Sturgis. For the Ole Sushi Strainer, the first full beard I ever kissed. For Dr. House and Dr. Bones. For the art car parade. For letting me cat sit Gertrude and Claudius. For the phrase flea dust. For steeping me in the Bayou City while I still had the chance. For making me feel wise beyond my years when the opposite was the case. For accepting my apologies. For seeing me off. Ta, the state of Florida. Ta, Pensacola, for your heraldry. Ta, St. Augustine, for the word globster. Ta, Gainesville, for the treehouse, for bubbles, for dude, for no central heat, for the dance of the Smathers library shelves, for Scorpio Rising and Taxi Driver, for Who Cooks for You? Who Cooks for You? For actual piles of alligators, for alligator chili, for black bean quinoa, for salsa cereal, for Hare Krishna salad dressing, for Newports and Presidente, for treating my pleurisy, for the word pleurisy, for the word bittern, for the student whose evaluation insisted I not take everything so personal, for my poem Personal, for my poem Teaching a Gay Poem, for pre-drag race Jade Jolie, for my cohort, for the trellis, for doubt, for all the bigger fish. Ta, my depression, for the days off work, for teaching me to appreciate K.D. Lang, for slowing my roll, as the kids say, for disinterring my live buried childhood, brushing the soil off its body, pumping air in its lungs and making it speak the terrible things it had been led to believe. Love never lasts. Not even the other faggots want you. You have been left for dead. For leaving me at a loss for words. For needing more than words. For needing sobs and wails, screams into throw pillows, bawling and puling, snot, silent tears in grocery aisles, on the phone, the free mall ride, therapists' couches and yoga mats in gay church pews, crying until my throat was sore, crying until my tear ducts bubbled. For not being about anything. For raising your voice loud enough for me to acknowledge you. For shutting the fuck up. Ta, Dad, for your pronouncements of love, for your polite articulation of how you believe I am keeping myself from happiness, for your contempt for victimhood, my whetting stone, for living through a broken heart, for never exactly leaving, for scanning the photographs, for teaching me to read, for teaching me to use chopsticks, for telling me to stop you, for your admittedly terrible Christmas and birthday presents, for your underlying mildness, for your saying you're proud, I believe you, for making me believe and not believe in God. Ta, God, for existing and not existing, for being non-binary that way, real and fake, a quantum, for being cooler than religion, for being way cooler than church, for the Baroque art of blasphemy, for the Bhagavad Gita, for the Tao Te Ching, for the Bible, its many horrors and absurdities and ditties and arcana, for Paradise Lost, for Leibniz, for Nietzsche, for Flannery O'Connor, for, believe it or not, Game of Thrones, for the beauty of men, their unmown stomachs and legs, their thick, bosky eyebrows, their stupid pouts and exaggerated repose, their cubist chests and cocks and posteriors, for the words cum gutters, for the word callipygian, for the sound of tangerine wedges as they separate. Ta, Scrabble, for the words, the glorious, copious words, for oxo, fremd, anestry, and rolamite, for berry, berry, gree, juju, and dick, for the poo list, for faggier, faggotier, nancier, and queenier, for shitbag and shitload and chicken shits, for fuck ups and fuckwits and fuck offs, for front hooks, X Ilem, F airway, W ageless, O cherish, for end hooks, bazoo M, belie F, fix it Y, for miniaturizing achievement, for the word Gibsonization, for your uneasy but not irreconcilable relationship to poetry, for the unprofitability of both, for spondaic and caesura, sestina and guzzle, for poetess and poet-like and poet-less, for the delicacy of an endgame setup being not unlike the composure of a sonnet, for anagrams being not unlike rhyme, for masters, streams, for defiant, fainted, for gyrated tragedy, for phonies, challenged and unchallenged, for the hatal depths of mastery, for everlasting love, for word fetishists, may we never be cured. I told you it was long.
I was going to say, okay, it's Kathy, it's 5 minutes to midnight. We went over our recording
Yeah,
hour.
is the time up yet? No, we're good.
Yeah, I was going to say you. So when did you write that?
I actually wrote that at a residency. So it was not a particularly dark time. I was actually feeling great. I was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, at the what do you call it?
at the
the
Masthead
house.
residency.
Oh, in Masthead. You went to Mastheads. Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah, yeah. And I was writing in this little sort of inhabitable sculpture, basically. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah. It's like a little cocoon or something you write in. Yeah.
yeah, it was a recreation of Oliver Wendell Holmes' writing space. Um, he was kind of a not so nice guy. But I was
Yeah.
very happy to you know, derive inspiration from the shape of the space where he wrote. And I was just feeling very grateful for the opportunity. And I felt like I was sort of overdue for expressing gratitude to a lot of the people and things and ideas and concepts in my life. So I wrote that in a very sort of feverish um, summer, uh, it was maybe a week or so.
Yeah, I feel like I just went through 30 years of your family photo album.
Yeah, I mean it does cover a lot of time, that poem. So
No, but I
uh,
love that kind of some of the rapid fire language. It's like just bam, 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 bam. It's like, you know, sometimes the way life is. So no, that was very enjoyable. Very
well, thank
enjoyable.
you. Thanks for
So
letting
so
me read
let's yeah, yeah. No, it's great. I didn't realize how long it was. So we only have time for one brief commercial. No kidding. A
it.
little humor. Well, we're going to do this though. We have a break in the middle, and we have the audience ask questions or give some comments. So we're kind of at the
Sure.
top of the hour. So why don't we do that? Does anyone have any after you've taken a breath, after you've taught out, you're ready to talk,
Shout
or
out. I like
I
that.
know you get out trying to I don't know. I'm recovering from walking pneumonia, so I'm not exactly 100%. So yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
This has been a yeah. This has been a respiratory journey I have not wanted to take, but it is what it is.
Thank
So Heather Meyer
you,
said it's
Heather.
wonderful, James. Anybody else? Want to unmute and throw out a comment or a question? Don't have to. Just Kathy.
Well, yeah, I really enjoyed all of that, and I wasn't sure, where it was going and how you were going to find an end to it. But I'm fascinating with the Scrabble two-letter word idea, and it certainly gives you like, kind of a goal to keep working towards
Right.
that way. Um, but one of the things I wanted to ask about is just how you decide, like when you wrote this, I mean, it sounds like you wrote it sort of in a frenzy of a week or whatever. Like, like, when you went back, like, did you question if there was too much, or did you get feedback like that? Because sometimes when I write long things, I don't get, I don't know. I feel like people question long poems. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think poets question long poems too. Like
yeah,
the real estate for poetry is sort of limited. Like
Yeah.
it's and I feel like that's self-imposed and imposed from the outside. Like poetry has to be this sort of rarefied space. And that's of course all artificial. And there are tons of long poems out there and tons of like people who write in really long lines and who write like gigantic prose poems that are indistinguishable from a short story visually. Um, but I do think there's something good about the impulse to sort of like question the the space a poem is taking. And I felt like this was never going to reach another reader. Like when I was writing it, I very much felt like it was a a personal exercise, like a good, healthy sort of thing your therapist might tell you to write. And I thought it was going to be one of the many poems that I sort of like write in this series and in outside of this series that I keep to myself. But I mean, sharing the few people that I did share it with at the residency really responded to it, and it felt, you know, the energy behind it felt good, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it felt worth sharing. And like I have published it in excerpts, and I think that there are parts of it that are like
Okay.
more legible to a wide audience than others.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of the things I was going to ask you is if you saw those different sections almost like, you know, separate poems in a sense that could be read all together or not. And
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that like that is part of the narrative structure, is placing the parts that I think are most universal in a way, least esoteric at kind of climactic moments. Um, the composition of long poems is really interesting, and I think under discussed maybe in like
yeah,
workshop settings. Um,
one of the
but
reasons I think it works so well, though, is because it does have a single concept, you know, ultimately, even though, you know, as you move forward, you're thanking different people and all the types of things change. It's not like the reader gets lost in it, because, you know, it is a cataloging of one thing in a sense.
yeah, the spirit behind it, um, the type of gratitude obviously changes throughout, but the my challenge to myself was to make every one of the thankings that went on in it like sincere. Um, so I think that's important to the unity of the piece, is that none of them are too snide or arch or anything like that.
Well, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
So James, one question, did you start just with one or two sections when you were thinking about it? Yeah, I'm just wondering, and then other things, all of a sudden you said, well, if I'm going to write about my brother or my dad, I got to now write about this. I'm just wondering what dominoes started to fall as you just kept going through it.
Well, it definitely started with my mom. Like,
Yeah.
so that felt necessary. This book is dedicated to my mom. I am extremely grateful to have a very loving and close relationship with her. And so that was consistent in every
Yeah.
step of the drafting process. It was a longer poem than even what you heard, so it was a lot of paring away. It could probably use even further pairing at this point, but it made it into the book in its current form, so that's how it shall stand. Um, yeah, I have some readers that I I sent it to, and they suggested some edits and arrangement things, and uh but the idea was to like do something chronological without drawing too much attention to like the chronology, not having like timestamps anywhere
Yeah.
necessarily, just sort of implied timestamps.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. So do you have another, knowing you, we only have time for one more of your poems. Only
I
kidding. Only
don't. This
kidding.
isn't like.
I
This
know,
isn't
I'm
really
busting your
like.
chops today. Yeah, I got to bust your chops. Yeah.
It's not like my main mode of writing is long poems. I just know you, Stockbridge Library, are like extremely welcoming of all sorts of expression.
That's
So
it. That's it.
yeah. Uh, I think I'm just gonna read the title poem of the book, Club
Yeah.
Q. Okay. Club Q. I stand for quest, which is to say mission, as in our mission is to provide a safe space for you to be yourself, which is to say it is not always safe for you to be yourself. For Queen, as in a 6-4 share, hosting Wednesday night karaoke, always the first and last to sing. For Quarters, which is to say jukebox, 8-ball, cigarettes, home. Of course, I stand for queer, which is to say unique, which is to say alone. I am queer in a military town where cadets count out football scores and push-ups and blue angels bar up the sky. For quarantine, for questioning, as in how long have you known? As in would you like to dance? As in a dance floor empty save for two men kissing, a patio fenced in, the warmth of a fire pit, the sweetness of his saliva after 3 gin and tonics. For quick, which is to say alive, which is to say mortal. I am quick as a number scrawled on a cocktail napkin between pages of a 1-year Bible on a nightstand. Quiet as the fist-sized cloud rising from the sea after Elijah slaughters his 450th prophet of Baal. For quench, to satisfy and to extinguish. I stand for rainbow and I stand for rain.
Great. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Julie, who's in the audience right now, she and I used to go to Club Q together. And yeah, very special place in my life. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I got 3. Yeah.
That's right. We would do karaoke there. Club Q, they shut down after the shooting, but they're opening a new space in Colorado Springs, so I'm really happy about that.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
More poems?
Yeah, sure. Is there something new that you've written that you'd like to share? You don't have to. Really, it's up to
Yeah.
you to.
No, I'd love to. So I'm gonna read another poem from the Scrabble series. And there's about 20 of those Scrabble poems in my first book. And I'm continuing the series in my second book in progress. So yeah, it's a through line in my writing. This poem is called Ore, which in addition to its common definition, ore can also mean the color gold in sort of medieval heraldry. So it's a way of describing the color gold, or basically just yellow. So let me, there we go. Or to love and to cherish, to have and to hold, or something about the weather, the common cold, or argent, a moon white field flapping. You're in the clear as soon as you surrender. Do as you're told. Or what? How can we talk about sex when we can't talk during sex? Potent as Tetris, bodies pulled or cajoled into the gules. The nose loves tincture, stinks the same as wars. With a jack high, I fold or go all in. I want my heart's proper pure muscle as my charge. I want to be big, bold, or part of your complete breakfast, weeping my colors into your milk. To convert is to be sold or made green by a story, the Bayeux tapestry as one big fruit by the foot. To get rickrolled or trolled by Roland. No shortage of ways to hatch our plot, to make the crusader a cuckold. Or our arms were briefly joined. We shared a pail is all. Now it's gone. All that's left is a band of gold. Or
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I like how you take, last one was Q when you played off the Q thing, and this one was right. No, I just love how you, I don't know what you would call that, alliteration or something, how you take something and keep playing off it, because it's great. It really, uh, it's kind of an ending, but then you're kind of shifting gears all the time.
Yeah, that poem is written in a form called the ghazal, which it's supposed to end at stop at the end of every stanza. And my take on the form breaks that a little bit by having the or kind of link toward the next stanza. And a colleague of mine who read it described it as sort of like plopping an ice cream scoop onto the next stanza. And I like the energy that you get sort of zipping across the stanza break.
And so that do you like that form as a way to express things?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful form that, it originated outside of the culture that most of our inherited forms come from. Like the ghazal is an Urdu form originally, and it was adapted into kind of the English context by a poet named Aga Sahid Ali. Um, and so the Americanized ghazal is a little different from the Urdu ghazal, but um, the idea is that the stanzas are really kind of loosely connected, that it resists narrative in some way. Um, so it's sort of like stringing a necklace together.
Yeah,
Um, all these separate beads coming together to form one, you know,
great.
one coherent shape.
Yeah, no, it works well. Works well.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Um, I'm gonna read another sort of wordy poem since like I do derive so much inspiration from just messing around with language. Uh, so this is called Words for Nonsense. Malarkey, hogwash, gammon, foofara. In poetry, it might be doggerel, which isn't bad. Amphigoury is better. Bologna, toffee, waffle, applesauce. A stoner's order at an all-night joint. The shit's so good it must be bad for you. Bullshit, horse shit. Bullshat, but not horse shat, which looks and sounds a bit like horse's hat. Gobbledygook, a terrifying word. And garbage, naturally. We love that too. A lot of overlap. Rubbish, stuff, crap. A whole pile of just about anything. A few are problematic. Huge surprise. Gibberish is anti-Roma. Greek, all Greek to me, in French is du chinois. Is it a love of taking off our pants, this blazoning of the absurd, or love of taking them off others? Probably both. It's always kind of probably both for anything that's in between. Bollocks, horse feathers, mumbo jumbo, tripe.
What's the name of that one again?
Words for nonsense.
I love it.
It's you get what you get what's on the label.
That's great. I have to learn how to speak this way. Noelle is a friend who's on the call. Noelle, this could be good for my CFO work if I could be talking in, words for nonsense to kind of help people clarify their financials. It'll be good. Yeah. James,
I,
you give me some new ideas. Yeah.
I've been muted because I have a cough and it doesn't stop. I've really enjoyed the rigor of your poetry, James. And that one was
Thank
definitely
you.
my favorite. That's my favorite by far.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, balancing rigor in play is sort of, yeah, I guess that's the sort of spark making friction that animates a lot of my poems.
Yeah, there's like you talked about it, excuse me, there's like a drum beat to it that I really enjoy as well. But that one was definitely my favorite. I wanted to do this, but I couldn't find the symbol.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we have so many words for that particular thing. I guess there's a lot of it going around, and we need a lot of things to describe it.
Yeah, I think we need some new words to describe it. There is a lot of it going around. There's a lot. I think nonsense is now its own country. I think it's been carved off from someplace, and it's yeah. We
Yeah.
won't go there. Yeah.
I have noticed reading these poems that they are all basically list poems. And so I'm going to read a poem called Every Poem is a List Poem.
Oh boy.
Because every poem is a list poem. Because every poem is a body. Because every body is a list of bodies. Ingrown and outgrown, worried, worshipped, warmed, occlusions, papules, pockmarks where the papules popped. Every poem is about life, especially the ones about death. And life is a list of lists. A and D, bucket and shit, top tens and next ins. And the list goes on, which makes it beautiful. And beauty is just a list of ideas about what beauty is. Pain, a numbered list, 1 to 10. 10 being, I'm already dead. And 1 being complete, paralyzing elation. Even the sweetest slice of Saturday should clock in at no lower than a 2.5. I am 30, inaudible, and a list of words for nonsense. Codswallop, fiddlesticks, hokey pokey, beans, and words I know are words, but that's about it. Words like bedelium and Talveg and Uintaite that look mutated and are, because the dictionary is a list of mutants. Choose one mutant from the following list and make it your husband. Thermite, donkey work, Gentoo, plink. You chose donkey work, didn't you? Everybody does.
Wow.
I've read that one here before. I've been,
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. It still has a yeah.
sorry if I'm repeating myself.
No, you can repeat yourself. It's great. You kidding? I love it. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So just tell us about you. You have a book that's kind of ready to be published or published next year, or
Yeah, I'm in the submission stage. I mean, the manuscript is still going to wiggle a little bit at this stage. I think as I like look at it and revise it for submission, but I've been sending it out to some contests that welcome second books, and it's yeah, scary.
and do you go back to your original publisher with a second book, or do you have to kind of start in the market again?
I'm keeping both options open. I really love Waywiser, and would be happy to have the second book published through them. But I'm also looking to sort of, there's some other places that, you know, I admire what they're doing, and they have sort of different resources than Waywiser does. Waywiser is a great press, but it's very small, and they have a limited sort of marketing budget. So I might be able to reach a wider audience with a different press. So just
Yeah.
trying things out.
Yeah, and this is just one final question, then we, have maybe one or two more poems.
Okay.
Is it easier to get published, or now is it just because of all sorts of economic issues and everything else, it's harder?
Um, for me personally, I don't know. Like in terms of the manuscript, I haven't heard back from any of the places I submitted to. Like I haven't got any rejections yet. So I had really great luck with Club Q. And like I had been reading Waywiser books for a long time. I had been reading like previous winners of the Anthony Hecht Prize since I was like an MFA student, basically. And like I felt pretty laser focused when I was submitting the manuscript. Um, so I was lucky to like just have that sort of relationship already set in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
And with the other places I'm submitting to, it's a little more blind. Like I don't have the sort of intimacy that I do with Waywiser. So yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, and publishing is a very competitive, scary thing sometimes. So wish me luck.
Okay.
Light a
All
candle
right.
for me.
Yeah. So have another one or two to share with us?
Yeah. Let me look on my little set list here. I think this one is good for the theme. And this is from my second collection. Um, it's called A Story of the Lips. It's in 4 short sections. A Story of the Lips. 1. At Kmart, I asked Dad if it's okay only girls grace the packaging of the lip smacker chapsticks he's about to buy. Coco Loco, Blissful Berry, Wicked Grape. 3 needful treasures for my burgeoning trove. I come to hear his answer as both rehearsed and improvised. Sometimes they use girls to advertise things boys use, he says, correctly and beside the point. He says, don't worry. He says he's glad I asked. He says he won't tell anyone. 2. In the church basement, a teenager, son of a member of the 12-step group my mother attends upstairs, frisks me. A game with rules I do not understand and will never quite learn. From my shorts pocket, he pulls out a tube of cotton candy, slick and pink. What have we here, he wonders. You some kind of faggot? I am not quick with a comeback. He has me lie on the carpet, face down, arms behind my back, and reads me my right to remain silent. 3. A week at Timberline, all boys. I forget to pack chapstick on purpose, not even Vaseline. No evidence for my bunkmates to seize. From Reveille to Taps, my pink lips brown to a bark, dry, crusty, conspicuous. You look like a whore, a boy says. The bottom lip splits open during riflery. A ranger orders me to the camp female. A nurse who flinches at my smile, dips a Q-tip in her ointment, and extends this olive branch, her small, medicated mercy, to keep my lips sealed. 4. On our first date, we eat octopus and edamame flecked with grains of salt. You return from the boys' room and ask if I have chapstick, which I produce. Cherry, softening. Thought so, you say mid-application. the slutty ones always do. I am 19 years old, you 20. We swap tales from the high school stage. My turn as the tailor and fiddler, yours as the cowardly lion. Two members of a society, we split the check and the back seat of a white Ford Probe, sharing our natural flavors.
Fantastic storytelling.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe time for one more short one.
Yeah, yeah, one more. Yeah, one more. Yeah.
Okay, let's find. Okay, this is a good one. This poem is called Ugly Duckling. My version of the fable goes like this. The duckling is a duckling, not a freak mislaid in a dainty nest, no signet faker despite himself. His brothers give him shit and are, in fact, his brothers, a raft of lemon yellow kin who make of him a monster. The family he finds in mentors, a mallard, feathers green upon his melon, his wingspan slashed with iridescent blue, and all his handsome, feral, clownish mates who make the wet about the duckling steam. They speak of things his family won't, of lube on rectrices, of corkscrews and their corks. They know what ugly means, what ugly lusts for, proving beauty wrong. He loves these sluts, their brazen flight. Shot, they fall like rocks. And that
I love it.
That poem's by after a Rafael Campo poem that's kind of in the same mood, a retelling of the Princess and the Pea story. So it owes a debt to him.
I think I remembered. I don't know if it was Rocky and Bullwinkle, Fractured Fairy Tales.
Yes,
They used to have you know, yeah, that was the most political show of the world at the time.
I
There was always
love.
like this agenda of yeah.
Yeah, I watched that with my mom. The old reruns were on Cartoon Network when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with Rocky and Bullwinkle. And I had a
Yeah,
literature.
I've got my Natasha and Boris I've got Natasha and Boris and Thing 1 and Thing 2. Those are my
Yeah,
inspirational gods on Mount Olympus.
I had two guinea pigs named Boris and Natasha.
Yeah.
Um, I had a literature professor who mentioned the fractured fairy tales thing as a way of describing Dickens, actually. Like Great Expectations is kind of a fractured fairy tale. And it's a really interesting kind of form. Fun to play with.
So anybody have one quick question for James before we're not getting into the color of his Christmas tree. You don't have to change the color dimension in your settings. It is what it is.
Yep.
It seems like everyone's a quiet Wednesday.
Not a question, but James, I'm just so impressed and moved by your work. It's really powerful, very skillful. So thank you.
Thank you. Y'all are so nice. It's like a bit of a holiday tradition for me to come back here, and it's just I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, I think Julie's emptying the heart box. I think we can only fill up so many more hearts in our section today. But I love what Noelle said about the rhythm or the drum beat. There is this kind of method and momentum that kind of just builds through it that kind of, I don't know, it kind of supports it and guides it. To me, I just loved it because I felt like there was about what was said, but just kind of the way it was said.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, rhythm in poetry, rhythm is the heartbeat, rhythm is breath, and it's a way of helping us find those things. I think when we may have lost touch with them. So I'm a big fan of, you know, metrical poems. I write in blank verse often, and but there, you know, there are many ways of finding rhythm and finding your way through the line in the poem. So that's just what works for me.
Well,
Listen, thank you. Yeah, thank you again for. Noelle, did someone want to say something or?
I did. I just wanted to add to something that John said, James, is that your poetry has a forward momentum to it. It's more than rhythm. It really feels like it's moving forward. And I'm curious how you capture that visually in print. Because when you're reading it, I feel it. I wonder how it shows up in the way that you use typography and the like.
I'll show you the Ta is kind of the most unusual looking of my poems. Like it has an almost kind of outline structure
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
There are these sort of like levels of indentation. But often when I'm writing in like, you know, blank verse, on the page, it looks pretty pretty standard. So like I think they're called homostrophic stanzas, where it's all, you know, the stanzas tend to have the same number of lines throughout. I like a big rangy stanza with, you know, no stanza breaks sometime. Occasionally I'll do something a little more concrete. Like this is called Self-Portrait as Articulated Wall. It's after a sculpture in Denver by the same name. And I lived like a block away from that sculpture and would see it every day on my way to work. So using it as sort of reflection. I like to get a little artsy sometimes.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Sorry about it.
Okay, cue the Christmas tree. Only kidding.
To start my model trains.
Yeah, there you go.
James,
Hey,
thank
James,
you
we have
so
to
very
sign
much.
off.
John,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Audience.
Happy
My
holidays,
pleasure. Good to
everyone,
see
and-
y'all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Oh
you.
no, it's great.